From the well-made now to the homemade, sort of like a garden shed project of somebody's spectrum and tape deck put together. But it's not just a spectrum and tape deck put in a, so we say, solid steel, possibly. I don't know what that would have been, but I can tell you it looks like that was completely handmade as well. Yeah, I bought this from Vintage Gamer in Cradley quite a while back, and Nick gave me a good price on it. I'm just going to turn you around to show you that, yeah, it's just one power input. So that power input's going to supply the spectrum and the cassette, and that would have been an RF there, but I've changed that for a composite lead outwards. And also your edge connector, which is sort of miles away from the actual spectrum itself. Does it work? Well, yeah, it works quite well actually, and there's a lot to it, a lot more than you actually think. I mean, the actual shape of it is, well, it's perfectly like a wedge shape, look. You know, it's looking a bit like of its age. You can probably notice that there's a connector there, and there are two screw holes here, because originally there was two micro drives next to each other, connected together, and these two screw holes was part of the plate that held them down. Apart from that, I don't know much else about it, but I can tell you what the functions are on it. For instance, you'll see that there are 4 buttons that you probably once seen on Darth Vader's chest. There's a white one here, which is not actually a button. Then you've got a volume controller and an output there, but that's not an output, it's actually an input for if you want to load from an external tape. You can push your tape into there, load it into the spectrum, and at the same time record it at very good quality indeed. You've got the sound, which you click on, we'll show that in action in a moment, and a volume control, because originally there was a speaker built into the back of this. Then you've got a reset button and the power on and off switch. Now let me just plug it all in. So now that it's plugged in, I'll switch it on, and you'll notice that the power to say it's on has lit up and the reset has lit up. That has stayed off, but if you press that down, that will also light up. Let's give you a closer look. Yeah, a bit of jerky camera action. So there we go, 3 glorious lights. That is another light for when you're recording. It's not a switch. These are all buttons. The first 3 in a row are buttons, but that's a light. Now, that's very clever the way that he's come around to registering the record button on that, and I'll show you that in a moment. Spectrum sits kind of nicely there. There's sort of brackets internally. Don't worry, we will be having a look inside this so as I can show you a bit more. But let's have a look at the actual record mechanism itself. Now, let's pull the tape out and put a tape in where I can record on. For instance, this one. When you press the record button down, you can probably spot it, it's lit up, yeah? And that's because just in this little gap here, let's zoom in a little bit. Can you see it? It's a little micro switch. Now if I can get from the top, you can see just basically bent a micro switch around to do that. So when the record button is pushed down, it pushes down on the micro switch, which registers that for recording and taking that out. The volume is preset at maximum, so when we type load speech and we press enter and press play on the tape, yeah, and you can see that the tape is playing just there nicely. We've got the sound external. Yeah, loads like a dream. That's a nice steady signal. So we're loading Manic Miner at the moment. Right, I'll tell you what each one of these individual buttons are for. So we've got a reset switch. You press that, it will reset the computer, and the way it does that is simply by interrupting the power, switching the power on and off for a second. So this is not, you know, shorting that capacitor on a certain way, just like the plus 2 would have done. This is actually taking the power on and off for a brief second. The power on switch powers not only that, but this. The sound, once again, that is to another audio circuit. There's a second input there for loading tapes, but you can't save via that. You can only save via the built-on tape deck. Yep, it's loading very nicely indeed. But let's have a, shall we press the reset switch? I just love doing that. Right, I suppose you'd like to have a look to see what sort of engineering went on to put this thing together. And believe me, this was no easy task, because what you may see here is a set of buttons, but what's actually underneath, I mean, that he's taken the handle off, yeah, and he's drilled into the actual cassette deck to fit the micro switch on to run the leads round. What's actually inside this is more interesting than what you see on the outside. I can imagine in its glory days with the two micro drives running there, it would have looked quite, you know, fabulous, and you'd think, oh, is this available to buy? Well, no, this was someone's garden shed project, probably, you know, something that most people would have been proud of making, myself personally even. Let's have a look inside. So turn it over, you can see there's some rather unique handmade grill there, which would have housed the speaker originally. Now there was going to be about 6 screws in this, but on this one there is only 4. One happens to be a Phillips and the rest happen to be straight. So we'll start with the Phillips first, and it will come apart quite easily. And I need to change my screwdriver out because the old straight head's in action here. And be prepared to be amazed, because what's actually inside here is a phenomenal bit of engineering. And well, I'd say a phenomenal bit of engineering. It's got to have taken him a long time to get this assembled the way he has. Almost as long as it's going to take me to get the screwdriver in that one straight slot. It's not easy when you're holding the camera though, that's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. One more screw and then we can lift the top off. In fact, it'd probably be better just to take it out with my fingers. Perhaps not. Right, let's get this underneath here. This is not one I would take to an event, because at the moment it's not very safe. Wow, I mean, take a look at what we've got here. So let's go through it, shall we? That's just your light for your record, which runs over to the cassette deck, which runs over to there. You can see there's the interface 1. Then the micro drive is plugged into there, which leads out to the bottom. Look at the amount of work that would have been involved in creating that to go to there. That is the power regulation. That only provides the 9 volts to this, but it also provides the 6 volts to that, which is the cassette deck. And you will probably notice that there are a spare of hanging free wires, because that there at the back, and if you look at that chip, that kind of gives it away as a little amplifying chip. That's a little amplifying circuit, so you could have the sound from the Spectrum out of a speaker which would have sat originally there. And you can tell that he's bent some of these fins over in order to get the bass of the speaker in, because all of this originally was a bit more flatter. Power input, not really well shielded. Main transformer, providing all the voltages required. There's a relay there which switches the sound between here to there, or from there to from the tape deck. So if you're going to use the volume control, which is the potentiometer just there, yeah, so as you can imagine, that is quite a bit of engineering. A lot more works than you realise. I mean, even this shield here is well bent into place, you know, and then spot welded just at the back there, not pop riveted, actually spot welded together. And it's the base of the case that holds the Spectrum in place, so you have to put it together before you can actually have a play on it. So that's what it would have looked like in its heyday and in its full glory. Yeah, 2 micro drives, an interface 1, a Spectrum, a tape deck, an external speaker at the back for extra amplified sound, and a whole lot of time and love spent in someone's shed or house or whatever it is that they decided to drill and make this thing. There was certain a bit of love going into this, wasn't there, to be fair. But it's homemade and it's well made for its time. Probably well past its time now, that's for sure. But I hope you found this kind of interesting. And I'm going to play Manic Miner. Why? Because I got a point to prove to Jeff. Thanks for watching Retro Robbins.